Hello, girls. I welcome you to the second part of the lecture on Trojan War and the Iliad. In the last part, we had discussed about the two parties who fight in the Trojan War. One side is the Greek side, and the other side is the Trojan side. And in the last part, we had talked all about these Trojans and who they were. We had also discussed at length about one of the main characters called as Paris and the prophecies surrounding his birth. When Paris was born, a prophecy was made that he is going to bring destruction or be the reason for the annihilation, which means complete destruction of the city of Troy. And as a result, his parents had abandoned him to die on a mountain. But surprisingly, he survives that ordeal and is saved by the shepherds and is brought up as a shepherd boy. We had also talked about the golden apple and how during the marriage ceremony of Peleus and Thetis, who are parents of the great warrior Achilles, Eris, the goddess of discord, she had thrown an apple amongst the group of people who had joined for the gathering or for the wedding ceremony and the banquet hosted by Zeus, the king of gods. And Paris is the person who gets to decide who is the goddess who should be getting that golden apple on which it was inscribed for the fairest. It literally meant that the apple belonged to the goddess who is the most fairest. And there were three goddesses who were in competition, and they all tried to bribe Paris. And Paris ultimately chooses Aphrodite as the winner, and Aphrodite promises Helen to Paris, the most beautiful woman on earth. That is what Paris chooses as a gift from Aphrodite in exchange for the golden apple. But the problematic part was that even though Aphrodite promises Helen to Paris, Helen was already married, and she was married to Menelaus, the king of Sparta, and that makes Helen the queen of Sparta. So, this Helen and Paris's desire for Helen was what led to the Trojan War. Or you can also see it in this manner that Aphrodite's promise of Helen's hand to Paris, in spite of her being a married woman, is what results in the Trojan War. And we'll get to know what happens furthermore in the epic. Okay, so before we proceed, we'll discuss a little bit about Helen. As we have already learnt about Helen, that Helen was the most beautiful woman present on earth, and the hand of Helen was promised by goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love and lust, to the young lover Paris in exchange for the golden apple during the marriage ceremony of Peleus and Thetis. A little bit of too much of information, but keep that in mind. Now, coming to Helen, Helen was the daughter of Zeus and Leda, and you'll have to note a particular thing, that Zeus and Leda were not husband and wife. Leda had a husband, but we just have to understand that Helen was the daughter of Zeus, the same king of gods that we were talking about in our last lecture. So she was the daughter of Zeus and Leda, and there is a kind of a debate going on. Some believe that what Zeus had done was that Zeus had taken up the guise of a swan. By guise, I means the appearance of a swan, and some say that he had seduced Leda, and others say that he had assaulted Leda. So one day, what happened is that Leda is either seduced or assaulted. You just need to understand that they had physical relations with each other, and Zeus was in the guise of a swan. So basically, Leda made love to a swan, and that swan turned out to be Zeus. The same night, she spent with her husband as well, with whom she was married, and later on, she gave birth to four children. And out of those four children, there were two who hatched from two eggs. So there were two who hatched from two eggs, and there were two who were normal. So two children were mortal, whereas the other two were semi divine, okay, kind of a demigod. And Helen was one of the semi divine children of Zeus and Leda. And as a result, Helen was destined to be the most beautiful woman in the world. So she was the daughter of Zeus and Leda, remember, and she was a kind of a semi divine entity, because one of the parent was a mortal and the other one was immortal, and she turns out to be the most beautiful woman present in the world. Now, coming to Helen and her elopement or abduction, it again is in a little bit of a controversy. Some believe that she eloped, meaning she ran away with Paris. Others believe that probably Helen was abducted by Paris against her wishes. So, we know that Helen was promised to Paris by Aphrodite, but Helen was the wife of Menelaus, the king of Sparta. What happens is that before going to the court of Menelaus, Paris, who had been brought up as a shepherd boy, he establishes his legitimacy as the son of King Priam of Troy. So he establishes himself and he is declared to be the prince of Troy. He becomes the prince of Troy, and after doing that, after establishing his identity and proving his royal blood, he goes to Sparta. Now, for 10 days, he is treated royally as a guest by Helen and Menelaus. So, there were certain rituals and customs in which the guest was honored a lot, and in the same manner, Paris was hosted and treated royally by Helen and Menelaus. Now, in the meantime, Menelaus had to travel to Crete for some business. Crete is the name of a place, and when Menelaus is absent in Sparta, like when he's not present in Sparta, away for some business, in his absence, what Paris does is, as I said earlier, some believe that he seduced, other people believe that he abducted Helen, and he takes Helen back to Troy. So, this was all about the elopement and abduction of Helen. Now, this abduction or elopement of Helen becomes the reason for the Trojan War. And when Menelaus comes to know of Helen's abduction, he becomes very angry because he had not expected something like this from Paris. This kind of behavior was completely shocking for him. And what he does is that he goes to his brother Agamemnon. Agamemnon was the great ruler of Mycenae. So he goes to his brother asking for help because he wanted Helen back. And he and both his brother Agamemnon actually try to ask Paris to return Helen back, but Paris refuses to return Helen. And this is the reason which ignited the 10 years long war between the Greeks and the Trojans. Now, some people consider Helen to be an accomplice, whereas others count her as the victim. This is what we were discussing. Some believe that she had eloped or run away with Paris. Others believe that she was a victim of the circumstances and it was Paris who had abducted her. Helen herself, at times during the course of the epic, constantly refers to herself as a prostitute because she was somehow seduced by Paris. And we know the reason because there was a kind of influence of goddess Aphrodite in the whole situation. Homer also sees her responsible for eloping with Paris, and the elopement or abduction of Helen by Paris results in this huge war called as the Trojan War, where Menelaus takes an army to Troy to bring Helen back. Menelaus was a Greek, and Greeks were also called as Achaeans. Okay, so Menelaus has this task upon himself to bring back his wife who had been abducted by Paris and taken to Troy. So what he does is that he tries to gather the lot of Greek forces. Okay, he was the ruler of Sparta, and he tries to bring along with him other kingdoms which were present surrounding Sparta. Nestor of Pylos was an old friend of the family, and what he does is that he accompanies Menelaus as he goes to each state seeking support. So the Greeks actually refers to Menelaus and the group of supporters who had come along with him who wanted to bring back Helen from Troy. There was this concept of reciprocity or notion means an idea. There was this notion of reciprocity, meaning if I help you in a problematic situation, you are also going to do the same for me when my situation becomes difficult. So the other states agree to help with the understanding that they will also receive a share of the bounty or spoils of war. So whenever a war happens, definitely one party wins and the other party loses, and the party who wins actually lays a claim to whatever bounty that they are able to gather. And in bounty can mean money, bounty can mean women and children. All these women who were captured, they were treated as slaves. So other states help, and they agree to help Menelaus with the condition that if they win, whatever they'll be able to get from Troy, or basically loot from Troy, they are going to share it amongst themselves. So they will receive a share of the bounty of spoils of war once Troy and its nearby states are annihilated or destroyed. And we'll learn of this that the opening dispute that happens between two warriors from the Greek side, one is Agamemnon and the other one is Achilles, is over what they see as an inequity in the distribution of their war prizes. It was a huge dispute happens in the beginning of the story itself, where they do not agree with the way the war prizes were distributed amongst them. Some Greek leaders were anxious to sack Troy, destroy Troy, but two warriors, Odysseus and Achilles, were warned by oracles. So these are the names that we have discussed earlier also. There was prophecy which was attached to both these names, one the warrior Odysseus and the other one the warrior Achilles. What were these warning and prophecies? Odysseus and Achilles were warned by oracles to not participate in the Trojan War. There was reason behind these things, and these oracles had made this prophecy regarding Odysseus. What they had said was that if he participates in the Trojan War, his journey back home would last almost 20 years. And because of this, Odysseus is hesitant and he does not want to participate in the Trojan War. So what he does is that he tries to feign madness, he tries to appear to be mad. He was not actually mad, but his ruse or his plan was quickly discovered, and he is forced to join the Greek forces in order to participate in the Trojan War. Coming to Achilles, who is one of the leading characters of this epic called as the Iliad, Achilles was warned by the oracles that he would achieve great glory, and glory was very important for these Greek warriors. But he is going to face his death. He is literally going to die if he participates in the Trojan War. And nonetheless, Achilles decides to participate in the Trojan War because he wanted to achieve glory to his name. And even such a big problem, or such a difficult situation which is going to bring death to him, also fails to deter him from not participating in the Trojan War. So what he ultimately does is that he participates in the Trojan War despite the warnings from the oracles, because oracles had plainly and clearly stated out to him that if you go and participate in the Trojan War, you are going to die. That was a kind of prophecy that was written out for him. But Achilles chooses to participate in the Trojan War because he wanted glory and fame attached to his name. So this is a map of the ancient Greece, and it tells you the geography of the various cities that are involved. In the bottom left corner, you can see the city of Sparta. Menelaus was the ruler of Sparta, and just beside it we have Mycenae, and the ruler of Mycenae was Agamemnon, who is Menelaus's brother. In the top right corner, you can see Troy, which is situated near the ocean, and it is believed that Menelaus of Sparta had launched 1,000 ships to go back and rescue Helen from Troy. So you can see the sea in between, and this is what they had to cross in order to reach Troy. So the Greeks attempt to attack Troy, and before actually reaching Troy, just like Menelaus, the ruler of Sparta, had lots of states supporting him, which made the Greek side. Similarly, Troy also had lots of other states supporting them, which made up the Trojan side. Okay, so the Greeks launch an attack on an ally of Troy, one of the supporters of Troy. But the Greeks are defeated and they are driven back. The army dispenses. When they face their first laws, they are a little bit concerned, and so what they do is that they go and they consult an oracle. Whatever important decision that they had to make, they always used to go and consult these oracles, who were considered to be seers, or those people who could see the future and make prophecies as to what is going to happen in the future. So they consult an oracle, a prophet named Calchas, and Calchas predicts that 10 years will pass before the walls of Troy will fall. So, this was one of the important prophecies that he makes, that the Greek side will not be able to bring down the city of Troy until and unless 10 years will pass. So, in the first assembly, the Greeks do not try a mass attack on Troy for about 8 years. In the second assembly, the Greeks are unable to sail for Troy. This was all the prophecy coming out to be true. Now, they again consult Calchas as to what is to be done and why this is happening. Calchas reports that Artemis is considered to be the goddess of hunt. She was offended by Agamemnon. Who was Agamemnon? Agamemnon was a brother of Menelaus, one of the parties of the Greek side. And why was this goddess Artemis offended? Because Agamemnon had killed a deer which was sacred to her, and this was the reason why they were constantly failing to go and attack Troy. So what they come to the conclusion is that they have to appease goddess Artemis. So Agamemnon sacrifices his own daughter in order to appease or please Artemis, and after this a great change happens for the Greeks. The winds shift and the Greeks are able to sail for Troy. We had already seen that there was a sea, an ocean between Sparta and Troy. So, after the sacrifice which Agamemnon makes of his daughter, the winds shift and they are actually able to sail for Troy. When they reach Troy, the Greeks build a wall to protect their ships, and this marks the beginning of the siege of Troy. The gods of Mount Olympus takes sides, leading to the total annihilation of Troy. And Homer's epic, the epic that we are going to study, the poem The Iliad, deals with only a small portion of the Trojan War, only a few months during the 10th year of war. So during the time period when the Greeks were on the outskirts of the city of Troy, they had set up their camps just outside the city walls of Troy. This poem Iliad deals with whatever actions that happen just before the Trojan city is annihilated or completely destroyed, and that happens in the 10th year of war. As you remember, in discussing one of the characteristics of the epic, we had said that an epic usually starts in medias res. What is medias res? Medias res means in the middle of things. So this is where the story starts from, when they were in the 10th year of war, and whatever actions that happen just before they are actually able to go and destroy that city called as the city of Troy or Ilium. Thank you.